Jai Gurudev, welcome back. So, today, Thursday, which is the Guru Day. So, blessing firstly to all of you. And today was funny, I decided to go outside just for a ride, drive around. And funny, it seems that nothing changed really, because we went to the river, to the Mosel. The shop was all open, all the restaurants was open, and everybody was sitting the same way as usual. In a way, it was nice to see lots of people really relaxing and enjoying this beautiful weather. And another way, you ask yourself, where is all the polemic that people have been talking about? And you see people go on with their life. So it was nice actually being outside to see, but it was a bit shocking to see how many cars are driving around, again back polluting this world again. So that was a bit strange. So then I have to rush quickly for darshan, and it was wonderful. So I'll ask Jagopat to ask a question now.
Dear Guruji, could you explain the responsibility of grihastas in supporting the ashrams of Bhakti Marga?
Actually, okay, we have to see, it's not only about grihastas, it's about in general for devotees. In ancient time, the ashrams was supported by the king. And of course, those who could support the ashram, the devotees, were supporting also the ashram by giving what they farm into the land. If they have rice, they will bring a bag of rice. Still, the same procedure in India is still happening. Actually, when we were in Maharashtra in January, we went to one ashram called Sevagiri Maharaj Ashram. There, funny, every day they make at least 600,000 rupees, which means it's a lot of money to run the ashram. But you have to see that mentality of the people. They have that deep understanding that their life is about supporting what is there to uplift them spiritually. It is, in the East, it is like this, when one person goes on the spiritual path, let's say in a village, one person goes on a spiritual path, everybody in that village start to support that person, because they know if that person attain to God realization, it will become enlightened not only for himself, because you see, an enlightened being doesn't only carry that enlightened only for himself, because an enlightened being, it enlightened everybody which is into shelter of that person. It's like the sun when it's shining, it shines on everybody. So like that, everybody in that village, they support that person which is moving towards enlightenment, so that there is no hindrance into their path towards enlightenment. So it is the same procedure for devotees and people supporting an ashram. I'm not talking only of our ashram, we're talking in general. All the ashrams is also like that. When you see in India, there's a big ashram, because the people have that notion that this is my, it is not separate. As you're supporting your house, you're supporting also the house of the Guru. So that enlightenment, that blessing, that grace which an ashram have, your house itself become part of that ashram itself. So when you have become part of the ashram, it shares the same blessing which the people are supporting. That's why, the support from devotees, in many culture, not only Hinduism, is also other culture. They have a culture of giving something towards the ashram, towards temples, towards, some people do it towards society itself. But this is all part of one whole things, because seeing that we are not separate. So it's not that the ashram is separate from you, like I always said, we are all one big family. And as being a big family, we have to support each another. Of course, the ashram, it is a different matter how it's supporting through all the work that they do here. It's also for the outside itself, because the people are not just living for themselves, they are doing things to promote and bring more the teaching of the Guru, teaching of God and love to the world itself. And that comes when people, the ashram, have the support of the community, the support of the ashram people, because the ashram people doesn't mean only the people who live here. It also includes every devotee and every people which have been touched about. So of course it is not that it's a must that you have to do, but it is from each person the willingness to do it. And in the West it's not really a culture, but when we look at Eastern culture, you see whether it is Buddhism, whether it is Hinduism, even Islam itself, or Christianity, which is fall also into the Eastern part. They have this mindset of sharing, and let me support. And one thing is that we have to see, your ashram, when you are talking about that, it is part of you also. And whatever is happening here, you are also part of it. And the blessing and the grace and the light and everything, you are into that. No matter where you are. It's not about distance. It's about your heart being centered here. So that's why the support of ashrams, that's why also you will see the kings, and like I said, in ancient time, they were supporting the ashrams. And of course the sage and saints, the blessing was always upon them. So it is not that the saints will not give the blessing if one is not supporting. Well, the blessing of the saints is always there. But it is also from one perspective, that what I received also I have to be grateful. And how I be grateful nowadays is just easier just to support the ashram in all the many ways, It's not only by giving money, it's also about some people come and do seva, some people do so many things there is to do, and also spreading the name of the Guru and spreading the message of the Guru around. This is also the most important thing. So.
Dear Guruji, in the temples, we can often see Krishna, Balaram and Subhadra together, but we usually talk only about the first two, so Krishna and Balaram. Could you please tell us more about Subhadra and what she represents in this trio?
When we look at Jagannath, Balaram and Subhadra, so more often in temple you see Krishna and Balaram, but when there is Jagannathji, there is always Subhadra. So Subhadra is the sister of Krishna and Balaram, and she is Yogmaya herself, and some said that when Kans wanted to kill the Mahamaya, when Mahamaya incarnate at Yashoda, when they were swapped afterwards, and Kans saw that it was a girl and wanted to kill her, she flew up. But when she flew, she disappeared afterwards, announcing that Krishna, the one who will kill you, have already taken birth. So then she manifests again herself back into Gokul. And of course, not much is talked about, but often you will see, Lady Subhadra is always present. And why I'm laughing about it is she's really one of the most sweetest deity. She's in the middle of her brother, feeling comfortable and safe. Imagine how wonderful to have such two powerful brother standing next to you. And you don't see that many places. You see that only the temple of this trio, when you see Balaram and Jagannathji, and then you see Subhadra there. And as you know, Subhadra was the wife of Arjun. So in that you will see, I was smiling earlier because when I went, I think second time to Jagannath Puri, and I said to Subhadra, listen, I'm coming, you should look after me. And I tell you, it was amazing how she arranged everything to look after. We were there inside the temple in Puri, and of course, you see, such temples have many gates, and one gate which is everybody can go through. And when I arrived there, you have to buy a ticket. Of course, we buy a ticket. I didn't know anybody there, so we bought a ticket and we were waiting for the turn. At the same moment, as we were sitting and waiting, the main priest of the temple came there. And as he was passing by, he just stopped and greeted me, and he stopped talking to me. Which normally these priests are very, yesterday we were talking about Brahman, they're very dogmatic and very strict in their ways. But he stopped talking, and he went inside the temple, then he came back again. And then he said to me, I don't know why I'm just being pulled to talk with you. And I feel that the Lord himself wants me to look after you. So then he said, you just wait for 5 minutes, I'll bring you inside. So he brought us inside the Mulasthanam, just in front of Jagannathji, and Jagannath, Balaram, Subhadra. And I tell you, it was amazing being in front of the deity itself, in the Mulasthanam inside. The energy inside is so strong. And I was inside for an hour in front of him. Every time I wanted to go, I had darshan, I did parikrama and everything. Every time I wanted to go, the priest said, wait. So 1 hour I was standing inside there in front of the three of them. And after that he came outside and he said, I want to feed you. His assistant was shocked. And the assistant was saying to the person with me, they said to, I think Chida also was there, I don't know if I don't mind. And he was saying that he never ever treat anybody like that. Even other priests and other guru come, he don't treat anybody. And here he was just like a child, was looking when he would bring prasad and all these things. He made us sit outside in a nice place. And after 15 minutes, he brought so much prasad and sit there and feed us just in front of the temple of, in front of the gate of Jagannath Ji, you know. And he gave us also, he gave to me also the flag, which was from the temple, and other things he gave from Jagannath Ji, especially when they changed the deity. So he gave me all this, and I said, I don't know why I feel so pulled towards you, and this is, I'm just responding to my feeling, what I'm having. Then I asked him, can we have some prasad, because there's some people outside waiting. And he said, yes, of course I will get prasad. He asked his secretary to go and get prasad for everybody, and he came outside the gate itself and meet everybody and give the prasad to them. And we wanted to give him some dakshina also afterwards. And he said, no, I'm not doing that because of I want something from in return, you know. I don't want anything. I just feel happy that I have done that. And that was really strange, you know. I was laughing afterwards when I was thinking about, you know, really, she did take care of us, you know, especially me, you know. She did take care of me when I was there, you know, and in a very special way, yeah. So every time I think about this story, I smile about it, because she's like also, it's very dear, you know, to those who come to Puri, those who those who called her, and she look after them. Yeah? She's like, it's like you're going to somebody's house, and she care for you. You know, so Jagannath and Balaram are there, yeah. But you see, the women of the house is more caring for the guests, you know, and it's not the guests actually. It is everybody's home is where Prabhuji is, where Jagannath Ji is, where Krishna is, you know, everybody's home is there. So, of course, you see how Lady Subhadra really cares for everybody, giving the prasad itself, you know, it was amazing, I tell you. And yeah, so not many people know about her, not many people really worship her. Only in Jagannath temple there is, you know, because she is Mahamaya, she is Durga, she is Shakti herself, and she is the sister of Lord Krishna. You know, so.
Jai Gurudev Guruji, if I think of Madhurya Bhav, only female great saints like Mirabai, the Gopis and Goda Devi come to mind. As the Atma is beyond genders in its love for the Paramatma, are there some examples of God-realized souls who have experienced this Bhav on earth in a male body?
Well, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is one of the most, prominent figure who have experienced its Madhurya Bhav in a male body. You have to see that, you see, on the Bhakti path, like I was saying yesterday, you know, when it comes to Bhakti, there is no male or female. So the excelled over the mind of duality, you know, go beyond that gender itself. So it's not that only female can have Madhurya Bhav, you know. There is so many male devotee who love passionately Krishna, you know, with the same desire as loving her husband, you know. They are worshipping, they have worshipped the Lord itself. Of course, when we read of many saints, because of the culture of understanding, you know, very often those who wrote the life of these saints afterward, they will never say it. You know, Radharaman Charandas Maharaj, for example, you know, which is such a great saint also from Bengal, he was fully and madly in love with Krishna. And like that, you have so many saints which have that bhav itself, you know. And that's what very often we talk about Radha. This is the bhav of Radha. When it awake inside, you know, then it is beyond the gender itself. Because what is the most important thing is your Atma having this relationship with the Supreme Lord Himself. So if your Atma is having that relationship with the Supreme Lord, so what kind of gender can that be? There is no gender, because He is the Omnipurusha. That means that everybody else is feminine. You know, when Mirabai went to see Jiva Goswami, and you know, Jiva Goswami's ashram was strictly for male. And of course Mirabai was in Bhav, and she was walking and she heard that there's this great saint here, so she wanted to go and meet him. So as she was going up on the steps, some of the disciples of Mirabai stopped her and said, "Where are you going? Women are not allowed in that ashram." So at that moment Mirabai said, "I thought in Vrindavan there's only one male, that is Krishna, and everybody else is female, longing for him." So you see, when Jiva Goswami heard about that, you know, when his disciple told, he came running and bowed down to Mirabai and said, "Thank you very much to enlighten us," because you see, we are so much caught up with this gender figure that we forget that we are the Atma, and Atma is beyond gender. And Atma being part of the Lord, you know, being, we have only one thing, longing for Him. And that longing for Him, it is itself, you know, feminine. So it is through that what we can feel, you know. It is through that what we can have sentiment. So without that feminine quality, you know, awakening, we can't long for Him. So like that, many saints, you know, had, or still have, this bhav of Madhurya Bhav. But you see very often how the social milieu, you know, criticize and point finger to those people who have such bhav. That how can you love, you're a man, how can you love another man? You see, they will of course be criticized for that. That's why it is just masqueraded and covered by other things. But what they have inside of them, that longing itself, you know, it is that bhav itself, you know, when we talk about longing. So when we talk about longing, it's not only women who have that longing, men also have that longing, you know, those which is devoted to the Supreme Lord itself have that longing, because this is who we are, you know, as being a devotee itself, you know. We, you know, like is said in Canto 5, Chapter 18, verse 12 of Bhagavatam, it said that those who are surrendered and worship the Supreme Lord, all the divine and celestial qualities awake inside of them. But those which is not worshipping the Lord, they are riding on a chariot of the mind, running to fulfill all their desires of the world. So you see in that verse itself how a devotee mind is, you know, that quality which awake inside of the devotee. He is not talking about male or female. When Bhagavan Krishna is talking in the Gita, he don't talk about men or women. No, he don't talk about that. He talk about devotee, those which is surrendered to me, beyond the gender itself, beyond your body, you know. As long as your mind is absorbed into the divine itself, and it absorbed into Him, that mind which is saturated with divine quality, you know, that mind we have transformed from running outside, start to run inside, and that mind which is absorbed into that nectar of His love itself, you just need to desire more of Him. You see, if you have tasted Amrit, for example, you can just desire more of that. You can't be, it can't be enough. So love is such a state itself. It's such a nectar. When we talk about love, it's not just superficial love. It's not, that's why in that verse it's clarified itself. Those devotees, those who have gone beyond the mind which is running onto the outside, those who long for him, those who worship him with devotional service, we see that that mindset have transformed into divine itself. All the celestial quality, all the God's quality awake into that person itself. And that God quality which awake into that person, is that what long for the Supreme itself. Because you have a taste of that nectar inside of you. And here, that big pot of nectar, which is in the form of Krishna, is there. Imagine you have tasted that laddu itself, and then the big laddu is there standing. Do you think you would just look at him like that? No, you will run and eat him. So it's, you go beyond that gender concept. That's why, you see, when bhakti arises, there is no gender. Then you see, you go beyond the physical concept, because as long as you are in the world, you are full of fear, you are full of thinking, oh, it must be like this, it must be like that. What do you know how the world have to be? How do you know that the spiritual world, how that spiritual world must be? The Lord is longing for you. His heart is burning, waiting. When would you awake? Here you stayed in a state of dormant, looking at the world outside, running in fulfilling all the external desire itself. So in place of going further, nearer to him, you're going further from him. And yet, you claim you love him. You practice so many practices, and say, yes, where does that practice bring you? When you don't have love inside of you, when you don't have any relationship inside of you, how would that joy awake inside of you? It will never awake. So it is that what really bring that relationship together. That's why also in Bhagavad Gita chapter 12 verse 15 he said, but those whose mind, those who is not agitated by the world, and the world is not agitated by them, they are free from fear, ego, envy, and anxiety. They are dear to me. So here you see the state of a bhakta itself, a state of a devotee which is completely surrender. That mind, that perfect being itself. The world is not agitated by them, because the world perceives them as a source of light. So where there is the light, there is no darkness. So they become a source of happiness, joy, peacefulness. So the world is not affected by them. But mostly you will see that those people who have such awakening or longing for the Lord, the world is always against them. So they are not bothered about it. So the world, very often, the world is envious toward them. The world is jealous about them, because they reflect a different light. So when you have reached to that state, you start to reflect differently. Of course, that the world will start to bother about, but that will not bother you, because you sit into that equalness of things, beyond the outside drama. So fear, envy, joy, sadness, all the stuff will not bother you. That will bother a mind which is aiming to fulfill their external desire. But the mind which is longing for the Lord, the mind who have already knows what he wants, are not touched by these things. So like that, you see, there is so many devotees who have that longing for him. The same way the Mirabai had, Andal had, and so many other ladies saints have. The Prabhus also had it, because like I said, in bhakti, that gender disappeared itself. There is no male, there is no female, there is no, the third gender, nothing. You are the Atma, and Bhagwan look at you in that state itself, the state into which you love him. And then he will respond to you accordingly, how much the love is. So there is a beautiful story of a saint called Saji. Saji, he had that love for Bhagwan, but he was always immense into singing and dancing for the Lord. And that was his passion. He will do his work daily, and in the evening or in the afternoon, wherever, he was gathered all the youngsters, and he will inspire them to sing the glory of Krishna. And he will dance with ecstasy. And after that, he will distribute prasad to everybody. So you see, he will gather all the youngsters. That was he was gathered all the youngsters, and he will inspire them to sing. And his joy was to give them the prasad afterwards, and also the joy for them to receive the prasad afterwards was amazing. So that's encouraged him. So after sometimes, more and more youngsters start coming, and he didn't have the means to really give prasad for all the people who came. So what he did, he carried on, but he had this deep sadness that he can't give prasad to everybody. So Bhagwan, looking at what was happening into the heart of his devotee, manifests himself as a little boy and came. Shaji had such bhav inside of him that Bhagwan himself will come and listen to his bhajan and kirtan. So Bhagwan disguised himself as a boy and bring laddu. So he will distribute laddu from a basket to everybody as much as they want. To their heart content, they will just distribute. And of course, Shaji saw that and he was intrigued. Who is that boy? So that night, Bhagwan came in the dream of Sahaji and said to him, "You did recognize me. It was me who came into that boy." So he said, "From now on, you don't need to worry about your prasad. If there is no prasad, I will come and distribute prasad myself." So, of course, when you hear that from Bhagwan himself, said, "Okay, if there is no prasad, but I will come and distribute prasad myself," of course there will be no prasad. So, like that, every day, Bhagwan will come and distribute laddu to everybody. So you see, that is Bhaktavatsal. When we take Bhaktavatsal, it's the Lord who really takes care of the devotee. It's not about which bhav you have, whether you have Vatsalya Bhav, whether you have Madhurya Bhav or Dasya Bhav. He will look after you no matter which bhav you have. You belong to him. Why will he not look after you? You have given yourself to him. So he don't care whether you are man or woman. He will look after you because you are his and he is yours, That is the most important thing to understand into that. And this body is made of a 5 element, It is not your sex what said who you are, It is what you have inside of you. That what Bhagwan look at, So you may be a male, you may be a female, you may be, however, love him with your heart. Let your heart be absorbed in him, and love him the way you want, Like if you want to love him like a husband or a boyfriend, whatever you want to love him, just love him like that. So it's not, he's not bound by you have to love him only as God. No, this is the beauty of the bhakti, of the path of devotion. It's go beyond the limitation of the mind itself, And it's also, this is the beauty of the Hindu culture, because you see, we don't say God is only a male, God can be he can be the mother, he can be the father, he can be he can be God, he can be your friend, he can be your child, there's some sampradaya who worship Krishna and they see him as their child. Vatsalya Bhav, so in Gujarat you have the Vallabha Sampradaya, they worship Krishna continuously as baby Krishna. So for them, they see Krishna as their child. So whatever bhav awake inside of you is always transcending that duality of the outside, so that you can establish yourself into your Atma itself, which is beyond gender. So Bhagavan loves those who transcend that mind itself. So there is no really, there is many saints, like I said, that have that longing and love, like they see Bhagavan as their husband, as their lover, and they have the same, the same argument with him, and they laugh with him, they fight with him, and for them, that's what Bhagavan find great joy into that, that there is no separation, it's your mind. So if you are mine, I like you the way you are, you can fight with me. There was one saint, the name is not appearing right now in my head, but it will come. He had that bhav, Chamoji, I think, Chamoji, yeah. Chamo, they used to call him, and he had that bhav for Bhagavan like this, he will love him and will cherish him, and his love for him is so intense, but sometimes he will shout at him, and Bhagavan will manifest himself and said, then after that he will feel bad, and he will start crying, say, why did I shout, to you like that, and then Bhagavan will pacify him and say, listen, I enjoy your shouting, because you are mine, because you are dear to me, and because we cherish that relationship, you can, shout at me, you can tell me anything. There is no barrier to it, and that's what Guru also does, remove all the barrier from the mind of the people, so that they can be themselves. But how many people really want to be themselves? Not many people, because they are so scared about the view of others, thinking how others will think about myself if I express myself differently. So you see, you continuously judge yourself, and then you expect that others will be able to accept you. No, nobody will be able to accept you if you yourself don't accept yourself. But when you yourself accept yourself, it doesn't matter how the people see you outside. So that's what Bhagavan see. When you have this relationship with him, it's not about the view of others, it is about you and him. So you can be in the male body, have that bhav, Madhurya Bhav, and love him with that bhav also.
Dear Guruji, what is God's response when two devotees fight with each other? Both believe they're right and pray to God intensely for help and support. So I'm curious to know how God solved this.
Well, you see, this is devotee which is fighting with each another. I don't think God have any, anything to do with that. If two dogs are fighting on the road, do you think it's bothered anybody about that? No, it doesn't bother anybody about that. So the same. So with two stupid person are fighting with each another, so I don't think it would bother. So they have to grow up, and really learn to respect each another point of view. If they're both devotees, they know that very well, but they are worshipping the same Lord, same Lord, and of course the Lord will be respond to each one differently. So what you have to do is to control your mind itself and have true knowledge about your devotion firstly. If you have knowledge about your devotion, then you will not fight like dogs. So as long as you see, why are you worshipping? Why are you calling yourself a devotee? A devotee is devoted, the servant of the Lord himself. So if the servants start fighting, how would everything work? It would never work. So knows one thing, that no matter how different it is, each one are serving and doing the service to the same Lord himself. So if you are both devotee, use your brain and grow up a little bit. Stop being stupid like a child, sometimes. Sometimes the children react more mature than grow up, especially when often you hear, this devotee is gossiping about that devotee. Why do you waste your time in gossiping? Do something concrete that will make you grow and will make others also grow. So why you waste your time like that? Sometimes I don't understand people. Here we had one Swami, itself. He's so stupid. A role of a Swami is to care for the people. But to remove the doubt from the head of the people, to remove the negative for the mind of the people. But when you look at these so-called Swami, you wonder how would you respect them, in place of removing the negative from the mind of the people, they utilize the negativity to fill the mind of the people. You wonder what is in the head of these people really. They are Swami, they should give the right knowledge, but yet what they are talking about is politics, alien, and all this mundane thing of the outside world itself. And then I ask myself, what have they really understand in their life? What are they really, thinking to give to the people? So of course, then they are like dogs. So what is the most different between them and the dogs? There's no different. So of course, then you have such kind of people, when they go and talk with the devotee, what would they give to the devotee? Of course, devotee will see such people like that, then the devotee will say, but they themselves are Swami like this. What kind of example is that? So you see, not only the outside people, also the Swami here itself are like that. So hope that one day they will understand, and hope that the devotee will really understand that word, what is a devotee itself, and what is, who is the devotee, what quality a devotee have, So that's why if you, there is this song that we all say, Vaishnava Janato, everybody knows this song, because Gandhi made it famous, and so Modi made it famous also. Understand the word of this song, Vaishnava Janato Dene Kaheje. So they explain to you what is a Vaishnava itself, what is the quality of a true devotee itself. So, Jai Gurudev.